Hello, and it's time for Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back-to-back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Well, night 2 of both the Great American Bash and Fyter Fest have come and gone. A lot of big matches across both shows. Which of these night 2s won for the week? We're about to find out. But before we do, like what you like, don't be a dick. Let's begin. Part 2 of the Great American Bash begins with a street fight, the second women's street fight in NXT history, they say, between Candice LeRae and Mia Yim, who actually jumps Candice during LeRae's entrance. So the match begins in earnest. Because it's a street fight, there's a lot of weapons here, and they are using them pretty liberally throughout this match. At one point, they fight into the crowd, like literally into some audience members' laps. Very poor social distancing is being implemented here right now at the Performance Center. They fight their way out of this platform. There's like a food fight at the catering table. It looks pretty ineffective. But they're fighting on this platform, and at one point Mia dropkicks Candice off the platform through a table, and that was pretty cool to see. And then they get back in the ring. Mia Yim, first of all, there's this like table bridge they set up on the top turnbuckle. That'll be important for later. Mia produces brass knuckles, but Candice cuts her off and whomps her with a chair. Big old pile of chairs in the middle of the ring at this point, and they're fighting on the top of the table on the bridge that's bridged across the top two ropes. LeRae with a swinging neck breaker into the pile of chairs in the middle of the ring. Candice pins and wins. They're both laid out for a very long time after the hard-fought battle. I thought this was a really entertaining street fight to open the show. They beat the hell out of each other very effectively and didn't make it look too dangerous while they were doing so. I thought the finish was pretty rad too. Bronson Reed taking on Tony Nese in a bonus match. Apparently earlier in the show, before the show went to air, Tony Nese was beating up Leon Ruff and being pretty disrespectful about it. Bronson Reed didn't like that, so he leaves the audience portion, gets in the ring and chases Tony out, which brings on this match in the same night. And you know, it's a short competitive match. Nese does look good here, holds his own, but Reed eventually just like squashes him like a bug with the top rope splash to win. Although I don't know how fair it is for Nese because he already wrestled a match before that, and Bronson like outweighs him by a ton of poundage. So who's the face here? We get a Mercedes Martinez hype package. She's showing up later tonight, and then we see backstage Robert Stone and Aaliyah try to recruit Shotzi Blackheart to join the Robert Stone brand. Shotzi says no, and Robert's incredulous. He throws his coffee over his head, and in doing so accidentally douses Killian Dane. So Dane decks Stone, and then as he's down, Shotzi drives off in her little tank and actually runs over Robert's ankle, which, you know, it may be a toy tank. That still couldn't have felt very good to have all that happening, running over your ankle like that. So poor Robert Stone, the bad luck continues for him, but seeing him sell for like the bulk of the commercial break with the picture-in-picture, selling the injury and everything, was pretty hilarious. In a follow-up to the big scuffle backstage the previous week, Johnny Gargano takes on Isaiah Swerve Scott in singles action up next. Really impressive back and forth early on where they're feeling each other out. There's a point where they're both on the outside and they're trading like they're swinging, they're missing, swinging, they're miss. One point Swerve just takes his own back bump on the floor to do a kip up, and they do a face off, which is impressive, but dude, you still took that bump on your back on the floor to do that. So I think point goes to Gargano for self-preservation. Some great competition here, a lot of fast moves and high-flying action, some hard strikes between both guys here, and it really shows you how much they value Scott for him to be so competitive and really hold his own against one of NXT's bigger stars. Ultimately, Johnny hits a Poison Rana on the outside, followed up with one final beat to win the matchup. So for a match with like no build except for the little scuffle beforehand, they put together a really great match. They hype up the women's title match for next week with Tegan Nox and Io Shirai. Then we see a 6-man tag match up next as Legado del Fantasma take on Drake Maverick and Breezango, who are doing a bit of conquistador flair for their entrance this week. Two main stories out of this one. First of all, Fandango does a lot of the heavy lifting. He came here to work in this matchup. He's the one who takes most of the heat in this match and also does a lot of flippy-doos as the match goes on. The other main story thread they have here is Drake Maverick, you know, trying to constantly go after Santos Escobar, but not really being able to, till finally they get hot tagged in. Drake's the House of Fire, but it does get snuffed out, and Santos hits the Phantom Driver to win. I thought it was an okay 6-man tag. I was probably not that invested in it, and I thought it was just, you know, it was an okay match. Probably the weakest of the matches on this night, in my opinion, but it was a solid match. But yeah, again, Fandango doing the heavy lifting here. Backstage, Johnny and Candice the Gargano celebrate their respective wins. from earlier in the night, and they say they're the biggest power couple, not just in NXT, but the whole dang universe. And Gargano has some strong words for Finn Balor, saying if it wasn't for him, he'd be fighting for both the championships right about now. And Candice says there are some wrongs that need to be righted. And Johnny basically says, we're going to go have some sex now, and Candice just rolls her eyes. So after weeks and weeks of hype packages, Mercedes Martinez finally shows up back to the ring at NXT to take on Santana Garrett. And it's a squash match. Santana gets maybe 1 or 2 shots in, but after, again, all those hype packages, who do you think's coming out on top of this one? Mercedes wins with the Fisherman Buster, and I'm looking forward to seeing more great things from her in the weeks to come. We find out that next week, Damian Priest will be taking on Cameron Grimes, and in the hype package, Priest calls Grimes a little bitch. Then we go to the main event. Winner take all, NXT champion versus North American champion, Adam Cole versus Keith Lee. The winner will have both the belts. Lee's got Cole in trouble early on, but then Lee juggernauts himself into the plexiglass on the outside, allowing Cole to get an advantage for a while, but Lee is still pretty darn strong and resilient here. Hits a spirit bomb, but then Cole pulls a Kevin Owens and gets himself on the ropes just by the fingertip into the ropes there. Lee, after one point, starts bopping and throwing Cole around like I were Brock Lesnar and here comes the pain, just using all the power moves to huck Adam Cole around hither and yon. Lee kicks out of a last shot, and then he hits a clothesline that has Cole almost land on his head. That was a pretty scary bump. Cole somehow hits the Panama Sunrise. We get a kick out, another last shot, another Sunrise attempt, but Lee catches him, hits a Spirit Bomb, the Big Bang Catastrophe. Lee wins and is now a double champion. And a bit of trivia here, Lee's now the first black NXT champion since Big E many, many years ago. I thought it was a great matchup here. I was just so glad to see an Adam Cole match that ended like clean without Undisputed Era interference like we've seen so often in the last several months. I think a lot of people expected Karrion Kross to get involved and be costly the championship. We didn't get that, but we do see Kross and Scarlett watching from a booth up above, seeing Lee celebrate the championship win and everything. But yeah, I think it was great. I think a really cool match. I thought Lee got over in a huge way. I had a gut feeling last week when he became, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, when he became #1 contender, that he was going to come away with it. I know that the match was spoiled apparently by someone who was like in the crowd when they taped that match like a week ago, but I didn't read the spoilers. I didn't want to be spoiled, and so I was very happy to see this result. I'm glad that the Keith Lee train is still chugging along here. It's night 2 of Fyter Fest, and it begins with another AEW tag title match as Paige and Omega defend against Private Party, who beat Santana and Ortiz last week to earn the shot. Early on, Hangman powerbombs Mark Quinn into the crowd, and then Isaiah Cassidy planches onto Paige. Lots of big athleticism in this match. Really fun stuff here. Maybe it's because the stakes are a bit higher than last week, and maybe it's because of the caliber of opponent, but I enjoyed this match a lot more than, say, the Private Party Santana Ortiz match last week. I don't know why I was kind of sour on that match, but this one really lifted my spirits. In the end, the gin and juice attempt is thwarted. The champs hit the last call on Cassidy to win the match and retain. So a great opener here by the tag champs. 2 great title matches in a row by Omega and Hangman, as you love to see it. Joey Janela taking on Lance Archer, and in continuing in Archer's tradition of beating up some poor schmuck during his entrance, this week he's carrying Sonny Kiss on his shoulders, Joey Janela's partner. No, not Sonny. The story here, though, is Joey's just fearless. He's like diving onto Archer. He brings at a table. There's a great moment where Archer pounces Janela, and Janela's like leaning up, mouth on the bottom rope, which leads to this amazing picture. Lance beats up Sonny on the outside just for fun. Janela mounts a real big comeback, but Archer's still too strong. Joey even counters the blackout at one point, and then Jacob the Snake Up, Jake Roberts, gets on the apron with a distraction, but it backfires because it allows Janela and Kiss to hit some double team moves on Archer, but Lance still kicks out. Ultimately, Lance hits the blackout on Janela to the table that was set up on the outside, from the apron to the floor, brings him back into the ring, and then pins him. That was an insane move that Janela took, and I really enjoyed this matchup. Like, how many times have you seen Lance Archer on TV right now in AEW, and how many real competitive matches has he had? You can count them on one hand. Like, I think it's been Dustin, I think it's been Cody, and Janela, and that's pretty much it. Unless I'm wrong, I might be forgetting something, but like, it's not too often someone really takes Archer to the limit, and I think that's what really impressed me about it. It wasn't just a squash match. It was Janelle like giving his all there, and like they almost had him beat, but ultimately Lance is too strong. We catch up with Darby Allin, who has some words for Brian Cage as he's recovering, and he shows how much of a daredevil he is by doing a big-ass coffin drop from many, many, many feet in the air into a big foam pit below. And then speaking of Cage, he shows up next with Tazz, and Cage this week wisely not wearing a shirt during the promo, gotta show off the goods. And then Tazz comes out with this big announcement. He then presents the original FTW World Championship. It was the custom belt that he had made in the original ECW days when he was screwed out of the ECW World Championship. And he awards it to Brian Cage. That's some renegade shit, Cole! He makes one final call to action to watch the AEW title match next week with Cage and Moxley. I thought it was really cool. They brought the belt back out, and I think it's cool that Tazz awarded it to Cage. It's like he's kind of like Mega Man right now. He's been imbued with the catchphrase of Canyon, the guidance of Tazz, and the belt of Tazz. Like he's getting all the collector pieces here. But here's my thing. Is it not a bit of a telegraph for Cage to have the belt right now? Because like, suppose he loses next week to Moxley. Well, this seems like a preemptive consolation prize. He may have lost the world title match, but he's still going to be the FTW champion represented by Tazz. That's cool. But then if he wins the title match next week, then he is essentially a double champion, which then I think you have both belts there, and it kind of deadens the impact of having either of them, have both of them there at the same time. So I believe in the move. I agree with the move of having Tazz awarding Cage the belt. The only thing I have a problem with is the timing of it. Oh, and by the way, if you like that little Tazz impression I just did, you can hear me do a whole lot more of them in this week's classic pay-per-view review of TNA Hardcore Justice 2010. It dropped just one day ago. You can check it out right here. 8-man tag match up next. You have the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bros, Lucha Bros that is, versus the Young Bucks and FTR, officially sharing a ring for the first time ever. So some big historic stuff here. This match went to 11 real quick. I think all four teams had a lot of chances to showcase what they can do. I like how there's a thread during this matchup where you've got FTR and the Bucks. They're on the same team, but there's that bit of trepidation and tension there. But there is a lot of kind of unlikely double team work here. You know, a partner from one team is working for a partner from another one and vice versa. In a match that was already full of a lot of big and crazy moves, the biggest and craziest by far was Phoenix's destroyer onto Nick Jackson by first jumping off Pentagon's back in the ring, grabbing Nick mid-flip while he's standing on the ropes, then flipping and doing the destroyer and landing on everyone else on the outside. There's no other way you can top the destroyer. That's the craziest way you could probably apply that move and make it physically possible. So my hat's off to them for making that work. But in the end, Matt accidentally hits Dash with a super kick, which opens him up for the LB driver. The Bros, the Butcher, the Blade, just the baddies in general. The baddies win this matchup in an absolutely insane 8-man tag team match. Probably the wildest match of the night across both shows, in my opinion. Outside the arena, Big Swole finds out she's been served and suspended for having kidnapped Dr. Britt Baker in her Rolls Royce a few weeks ago. Apparently, Britt petitioned management for this action to be taken, but why should it have taken this long? From a kayfabe standpoint, it makes the management look really, really dumb to have taken this long to act on Big Swole and what she did. I mean, there's clear video evidence right there. Anyway, we go to our next matchup as Nyla Rose takes on Kenzie Paige and Kylan King. She easily dispatches the two lady jobbers, and then afterwards she's on the mic and announces she's going to be hiring a manager soon. She will not say who it is yet, but she says that it will ensure that she will regain the women's championship from Hikaru Shida some point in the future. So who will it be? I mean, is it going to be someone we've already seen established as a manager who's going to be taking on a new client? Will we see somebody new? Time will tell, but place your bets in the comments section. Backstage, Colt Cabana is being checked on by the trainer. He's got a lot of bruising on his side as a result of being thrown into a barricade last week. And then Mr. Brody Lee comes in, sure makes it sound like suspicious circumstances as to how he got beat up, but he tells Colt to suck it up and get there in the ring and make it proud, basically. And Colt says, yes, Mr. Brody. And we go to that match, the 6-man tag match, as Brody Lee, Colt Cabana, and Stu Grayson take on the full group of SCU. Colt looks so confused on his way to the ring, the entrance there. The Dark Order's all lined up, and Colt's like, do I make my place here? He's so adorable in this spot right now, so kind of naive and just questioning what's going on. During the match, they point out on commentary that from here on out, Kaz and Daniels will be the ones from SCU pursuing tag team gold, and Scorpio Sky is going to be the one for the singles division. I don't know if they've mentioned that before up to this point, but it's the first time I heard it, so I'm glad they made that official. official there. In the end, Colt breaks up a Chris Daniels pinfall. Daniels is mad at him for it, and Colt is, he's very conflicted here because he wants to try and be do good sportsmanship at the beginning of the match, but Mr. Lee carts him off and everything. So he breaks up the pinfall. Daniels is mad. Colt's apologetic, but that sets Daniels up for the discus elbow by Mr. Lee, who then tags Colt back in and then makes him just go in and make the pinfall and win. The Dark Order win once again. I'm really intrigued with this Colt Cabana story. I mean, like, in the last few months, the Dark Order has gotten a bit more interesting. The build toward, the Exalted Leader, the reveal of Brody Lee, that didn't quite pan out the way I hoped it would. But then after the match with Moxley, I'm really liking this kind of recovery angle here where Lee's trying to recruit Colt Cabana and Colt's very conflicted. Very interested to see where this goes. Big Swole's been able to outsmart security, and she bum rushes Dr. Britt Baker in the Rolls Royce. And then you've got Rebel and then the security guy, Will Hobbs, APW represent, in between Swole and Britt. And so Swole and Britt just yelling at each other. Like, Swole throws a wad piece of paper at Rebel, who sells it so much that, the impact makes her inadvertently, backhand Britt Baker right in the face, and so she allegedly re-injures her nose. And then just from there, it's just more comedy because Britt is like holding her face like this, and she's like screaming. She's like screaming right in the face of people who are trying to come and comfort her. Meanwhile, Will Hobbs is there with the palm fronds trying to fan Britt off. It's just this crazy imagery here. And again, I love Britt's work here. It's been just really just A-grade stuff for the last several weeks. I'm loving it. Main event time, the epic encounter we've all been waiting for as Chris Jericho takes on Orange Cassidy, who tells best friends to go to the back for this one. He wants to win this one on his own. Orange starts out really fast right away. No slow ramp up to hyperspeed like he normally does here. He just guns blazing from the very beginning. Jericho catches him in the walls of Jericho. We get a rope break, then some sneaky actions by Santana and Ortiz on the outside allowed Jericho to get some heat for a very long time, save for a couple of moments of hope from Orange. There's one sequence where he just busts out a whole bunch like Lucha Libre pinfalls and Jericho keeps kicking out. A great moment, Orange comes back, does little shin kicks, but suckers Jericho in for a super kick with full strength that time. That was kind of a cool twist on that spot there. Cassidy's on fire, has Jericho reeling time and time again. He's hitting with literally everything he possibly can here. Orange fights out of the walls of Jericho again. We get orange juice thrown into his face by Santana and Ortiz. That prompts the best friends to show up and even the odds. We get a baseball bat attack and the code breaker by Jericho, but Orange still kicks out. But finally, Jericho's able to put him down with the Judas effect out of nowhere to win. What a match. I mean, if the Moxley Cage match was happening as scheduled on this night, this match would not have been the main event. But it was still a really entertaining closing match here for the show. Star-making performance by Orange here, and who looked about as good as you possibly could in wrestling and still take the pinfall loss. And it was just a cool moment for me personally as a fan. Two of my favorites at this moment in the main event. It was a match I was invested in. I think they built really well to it in the last several weeks, and I thought the main event itself was great. It's time for me to decide which show had the stronger night 2, Great American Bash for NXT or Fyter Fest for AEW. And this week my choice is going to be Fyter Fest. I think that they came through in the clutch and on the whole had a stronger night 2 than Great American Bash. And here's the thing, I think that Cole and Lee was a phenomenal matchup. I think, like I said, it was great to see a match be as clean as it was, no interference, and Keith Lee winning the way he did, holding both belts. That was great. You love to see it. I love seeing Keith Lee being pushed like that. As far as, which show gave me more chills, more holy shit moments, more matches I was actually invested in and cared about, I gotta go with AEW. I think I cared a lot more about the stories that they told in those matches than I did with NXT, Great American Bash, for all the epic, near falls and stuff we saw in the Keith Lee, Adam Cole match and everything. Just the stories that we saw in the matches, like the Jericho Cassidy match. The Janela Archer match was kind of a hidden gem as well. But in the end, the big takeaway I want us all to kind of have from this experience is that, whether you're a fan of NXT or AEW or you're both, the fact is you've got 2 shows across 2 weeks, 4 shows in all, that gave us a shitload of great wrestling matches. We saw Io Shirai and Sasha Banks. We saw Hikaru Shida and Penelope Ford. We saw 2 great AEW tag title matches, Orange Cassidy and Jericho, Keith Lee and Adam Cole, the 8-man tag team match. So many great matches you can go back and watch if you missed some of them. There's a lot that's out there, and I think that in the end, the fans are really the winners after Fyter Fest and Great American Bash. And after, it's been a shitty time right now in life, in the world right now. So if you're a fan of wrestling, at least you can find a little bit of solace and a little bit of comfort in the great action that both NXT and AEW brought in the last couple of weeks. But let me know what you thought about Fyter Fest and Great American Bash in the comments section below, not just for who won this week, but also which show on the whole across the 2 weeks was stronger in your opinion. Look forward to hearing what you all have to say about that. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.